So I want to make this video especially for new Pokemon investors. I feel like this might be one of the most important videos I've ever made because it talks about gains, returns, and money. And obviously, we're in this whole space to make money. And if you don't understand this component to Pokemon investing, you might actually make no money depending on when you sell, how much you bought things for. And if you're new, especially, and you've never sold anything, you don't understand how it works, hopefully this video really is helpful. It is just really basic math, but some people may have not thought of these things. So I wanted to make this video. Hopefully it's clear enough for you guys to understand and on paper how returns and stuff actually works. Like I said, this is really just basic math, but for those especially that are new, I want to show you guys how returns actually work in this space. So hopefully you guys can watch the whole video because I think it is very important to understand. So let's just start. So the big thing is that I feel like a lot of new, especially Pokemon investors, don't understand the actual returns. This is very important. Percentage gains are not actually true. Now I'm going to explain how that even is a thing. How are percentage gains not true? If it goes up 20%, how's that not really a 20% gain? Let me explain. So I'm going to give an example scenario that you have a Destined Rivals booster box, okay? And you are selling on eBay. Yes, you can sell it on Facebook Marketplace. You can sell it, maybe you have your own store. I get it, but most people are probably going to sell on eBay, okay? And for simplicity, the total fees are just going to equal 15%. Right now, I believe eBay fees are 13.25%. Obviously, you're going to have to pay for shipping and stuff. Just to make it simple, right? The math simple, we're just using 15% because it's a round number. We're not going to do decimals here, right? So in this scenario, your cost basis is $230. You pay $230 for this Destined Rivals booster box. This was pretty much the lowest price you were able to buy this booster box. It was just for a split second. You were able to find these maybe on some other websites, but market price for this booster box has been a little bit above that for the most part. I think the lowest market price really shows to be like $240, $245, but you were at one point able to buy this at $230. So that's your cost basis. We're saying you basically bought this at its lowest point, okay? Market price today is $300, okay? So you sell the booster box, okay? You sell a Destined Rivals booster box for $300 on eBay, which is the market price. So the total fees, like I said, was 15%. So you do 100%, which would be $300, right? Minus 15% is 85%. So you're really only getting 85% of the market price. And obviously in decimal form, it's 0.85. So after fees, you do the math, right? Simple math. $300, which is the market price you sold it for, times 0.85, because that's after fees, you come out with $255. So that is how much you actually made, okay? So you can see here, on paper gains, right, which is the not real, this is what you actually made, I guess just without the fees, would be $70, okay? This is on paper, you would have made $70 if you actually just sold fully at market with no fees and you subtracted your cost basis. It's $7 of profit. But your real gains was only $25 because obviously you had to pay the eBay fees, which after the fees, it was $255, and then your cost basis was $230. You only really made $25. That's a big difference. If you see here, difference in paper gains versus real gains, the paper gains was $70. Real gains, $25. So you can see there was a $50 difference in the real gains and paper gains. Now, why is this the case? So, when eBay takes a percentage of the sale, it includes your cost basis, not your profits. And as you can see here, on paper, you may have thought, let's just go back here, that, if I sell at market price, right, and I pay $230, I can make $70. Well, if you sold in person, maybe a cash deal at market price, that would be possible. If you own your own, storefront and stuff, you could just sell at market price and you could just make $70. Obviously, there's other factors into, your cost basis with maybe your store and stuff, but for the most part, if you're selling on eBay, they are taking a percentage of the entire sale, not your profits. So when you make a gain, right, a 20%, 30% gain, whatever it is, it's not really true because you're not really up that much, because after fees, you're going to be losing a chunk of that money. Now, this is just sort of unavoidable if you're trying to sell on eBay. There's other ways to obviously try to get better percentages. Some people have talked about, going to these consignment places and they'll give you like a high percentage of the sale. I don't know exactly what percentages would be for those, but most likely those you may get better percentages than selling yourself. But if you're selling on eBay by yourself and you're doing the fees, right, and you're paying them because you have to do it, right, you are not going to be making as much as you think. And like I said, this is some basic math, right? Doing some percentages and stuff. But if you're new and you have never sold anything, you may not even know that fees exist on eBay, right? You may just think, oh, I made, I'm up $70 on this thing. If I sell it, I'm gonna make $70. No. And when you do the, percentages and it takes, it off, your cost basis and your gains, it's a lot less. And I think this is something that hopefully you guys now understand and know that when you sell something, for the most part, you're not going to be getting 100% market price. If you want to sell maybe higher end items, most likely, if you were to sell in person, those types of items, I would say you could probably get closer to paying, I guess selling at full market. For example, maybe some vintage booster boxes or something like that where they're very scarce. If you go to some convention or something, you're more likely to get like what the market price is for like older higher end products. But for these types of things, like cheap, not cheaper, but not as high end, like a few $100s, and if you try to even sell in person, for the most part, it's very hard to get market price. Like if I were to go right now, list a Destin Rivals booster box on Facebook Marketplace for $300, I don't think it's going to sell that well, because for the most part, people are not going to be paying market price for, especially a very modern product, for like Destin Rivals. There may be some people, but it's not going to be a large amount. Usually when you sell in person, they're going to want a discount. So that's why some people just sell on eBay anyways, because when you do the math and everything, you might just come out with the same amount and you don't have to meet up with people, all those sorts of things. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I just want to use a scenario. I know there's many different ways to sell products to actually, sell them and possibly get a higher percentage than, 85% or whatever. But I wanted to make this video for especially new people out there to understand that the gains you see on paper are not actually your gains. If you go on eBay and sell, you might be disappointed to find out you did not actually make as much as you really thought. So that's all I want to show you guys here. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.